Homestead. Tuesday, March the 28th, 2006. Councilwoman Gahn is present, Councilwoman Wellman, Vice Mayor Losner, Councilwoman Bell, and Councilman Hodge is here. Is there a motion for approval of the minutes of March 14, 2006?
Motion.
Moved by Councilwoman Bell, second by Councilman Hodge. Any questions on the minutes? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item 2B is the Historic Precedents for Public Buildings presentation, tab 2. Is it PowerPoint?
Right. Mayor Warren.
Do you need us to come down?
Vice Mayor Losner. Council members, thank you for inviting us here tonight. My name is Raul Rodriguez from Rodriguez and Quiroga Architects Chartered, and with me is, so a bit redundant, but Raul Rodriguez from Rodriguez and Quiroga Architects Chartered. I'd like to take a minute to remind you that the last time we were here, we had a presentation for site selection. And since then, with the help of your able staff, and I mean that sincerely because we've done a lot of programming efforts before, but this was much easier because of the degree of preparedness and cooperation that we received from staff. We've developed a program document, and the next step would be to begin schematic design. And staff recommended to us that before we began drawing, which of course is a time-consuming, therefore expensive process, that we might bring to you a little bit of what the precedents, historical precedents, have been for City Hall, or for city halls in general. One of the first things that I wanted to let you know is how important a building like this is. I mean, I don't need to tell you what you do, which is represent your community. But I wanted to take a second of your time and talk to you about a city hall and public buildings in general as civic art. And let me just read directly from a book on civic art and how they describe civic art. And they say that the public realm is the preeminent concern of civic art, and the public realm consists of three categories: public, civic, and commercial. Public spaces are those that invite the ad hoc public activity and mobility and informal gathering. So examples of that would be squares, parks, and streets. Civic spaces are those related to intentional and formal gatherings of government, religion, and other institutions, which may be public or privately owned. So a city hall is very much part of the civic spaces under the public realm. So are churches, for example. The last of these is the commercial spaces. And the commercial spaces are designed to host the public activities of commerce in a place organized, again, by the public or private initiative. For example, a farmer's market is usually organized by public initiative or public-private joint ventures. But shopping malls, for instance, are entirely private initiatives. So with that, go ahead. We wanted to remind you about the site, which you're very familiar with, off of Washington Avenue, and appropriately on Civic Court. What you see there in the center are just block diagrams that indicate that there will be, where the circle is, perhaps a council chamber, which would take a place, of course, of this room we're in. And then we would have probably what architects call a bar, not for drinking, but bar in the sense of the shape building, which would be, which would be designed most efficiently as an office building. It's the workhorse of the building. And then the arcade that you see in white with two blue rectangles at the end, which would be something that would activate the other side of Washington Avenue, which has a beautiful median and might be suitable for different festivals and again, farmers markets and the like. With that, I, of course, will start with our mother city, Miami, Florida. And of course, Miami, to this day, is really, and maybe appropriately so, operating from an airline terminal. It's something that was designed in the Art Deco era for the flying boats, mostly to Havana and Key West and other places. Coral Gables, our other distinguished neighbor, as you know, developed by Merrick, adopted very quickly, not only in its architecture, but in its names and of streets and canals and everything, a kind of a Mediterranean architectural language. And believe it or not, this building is inspired by a colonial building in Philadelphia, but what they did was translate it to this Spanish Mediterranean architectural language. Another thing I want to add is that, like yours, this building is on an island site. In other words, there's nothing else on that site except this building. And it does an extremely, in my opinion, an extremely good job at presenting fronts to every street. There is, of course, a main entrance to the left, but there's a secondary entrance to the right, and the semicircular shape, of course, is indicating the commission chambers. Next. Palm Beach, with all of its affluence, has a very modest town hall, and it also sits on a little bit of an island. This one a little bit more, should I say, threatened by traffic. But it's, again, developed by Meisner instead of by Merrick, and they also adopted the Mediterranean architectural language with the barrel tiles and the Moorish details, and again, a very modest town hall for quite an affluent city. Go ahead. Interestingly enough, while Merrick and Meisner were doing their thing, we had Fisher doing his thing in Miami Beach, and he also adopted that Mediterranean character. And you should know, obviously, that in the 1920s, space was not an issue. So the fact that they went vertical to this degree must have been a response to the prominence that they wanted to give this building, and it's on appropriately on Washington Avenue. Okay. Regretfully, somewhere in the 1970s, they moved City Hall from that glorious building that you just saw to this building, which, to make matters worse, they built a berm around it, so it's kind of a bunker type thing, and it sits unceremoniously behind the convention center and surrounded by parking. Go ahead. Fort Lauderdale kind of took the worst of Miami Beach and made it vertical, like the 1926 building, and ugly. And again, I say this with all respect to the citizens of these cities, but you get what you pay for, and one of the things that happens is that depending on the time that you build, architecture, although architects would like to deny it, goes through fashion periods. You know, wide lapel, thin lapel, wide tie, narrow tie. And this is a particularly unfortunate period, I think everyone will agree. Go ahead. But just so you don't think that bad taste is limited to Florida, this was the flagship building of modernism in the United States. And I was in school when this building opened, and every student had a Boston City Hall as one of their projects. And again, if you think of Boston and you think of the area where it's at, it has not, I think it's fair to say, has not withstood the test of time. Next. Well, postmodernism didn't do any better. This is Michael Graves of Target fame now, designing toasters. And this is his biggest toaster, which he designed in Portland. And as my colleagues and staff will tell you, it was incredibly well received by the architectural press, but again, has not withstood the test of time. Next. City Hall in Hollywood is very interesting. And I'm going to tell you where it's derivative from, but it's interesting because it has, clearly, you know when you approach this building where the entrance is, right? So it has a main villa, if you will, which is the entrance with a flag, you know, and then it has these wings. Go to the next one, please. City Hall in Miramar, which is a much more recent building, it kind of takes on that model. It goes up to 3 stories. We believe that the proportions could have been improved upon, which, by the way, are all outlined. This is not something that architects dream up in the middle of the night. These things are well documented in books through the history of architecture. But it does clearly show you where the entrance is and the wings, and it has at least a very nice arcade on the ground level. Next. This is where it comes from. This happens to be Villa Emo in Fanzolo, in Treviso, Italy, on the Veneto. And Andrea Palladio, who was an architect that lived from 1508 to 1580, so we're talking 16th century, was the single most responsible architect for bringing back classicism. And again, this is the real thing. This is the main villa in the center, and these low-lying arcades behind which these buildings are called the Barchese, which is the place where they store the grain and the farm animals and so on. So these were very functional rural villas in the Veneto region near Venice. Go ahead. This is an example of another Palladio villa called Cornaro. And of course this one, this is the, should I say, the pastoral side. On the other side, you're right in the middle of town. So this is a more urban, compact version of the same thing, but what I wanted to point out to you is that these buildings are either stone, as you see in the piano nobile, in the base of the building, or stucco with a scoring pattern to simulate stone. And the language is a very classical language. Okay. Just so that you don't think that this stopped in Italy, this went across to England and also to Germany. This is in Dresden, Germany, and the architect for this is a fellow called Heinrich Tessenow, 1876 to 1950s. And we don't have time, but if you learned about this building, you'd see that it's as a name festival of the dance and theater, and it was one of the seminal buildings where in its innovation, and right now it is the recipient of a grant from the Getty Foundation and is being fully restored. Right? Another German example in Potsdam is Schloss Charlottenhof, and again it's a smaller version, but you can see the same organization of the main body and then the wings. It's exquisitely detailed, and it's the work of Karl Friedrich Schinkel, which is the preeminent architect in Germany, and took classicism and dressed it down, if you will, or simplified it or abstracted it so it's less ornate, but equally well proportioned. Go ahead. Not too far from home, on the west coast of St. Petersburg, Florida, they have this building, which is a Museum of Fine Arts, and it's, again, a very affordable building. You see there the difference between the stone details and how carefully it is applied at the cornice and the columns, and the rest is stucco. And it's several wings, as you can see, connected with an arcade behind which you have additional gallery spaces. Go ahead. One of the things that we found was an architect whose name is James Knox Taylor, who was selected in the 20s to be the U.S. Department of Treasury supervising architect. And he went around and not only did federal buildings, but also did city halls, and this one is in Pittsfield, Mass. And although this is likely to be more compact than your building is going to be, I mean, you can see the organization. There's a very strong entrance portico. There are a number of arches on the ground level, and then close to square windows on the second level to make it clearly less important than the ground level. Go ahead. This is a post office and federal building in Santa Rosa, California. And I guess you see how he changes sites, being a federal architect, but yet there is some continuity. There's always some, should I say, contextualization of the design, and you see the overhangs in wood. But the same thing, you know, the arcade is the main entrance, and the second floor always made to be indeed less important than the ground level. Go ahead. And then we were very, very happy, and it was interestingly enough, Vice Mayor Wasner appointed us to this building, which happens to be by the same architect, James Knox Taylor, and it's a post office in Fernandina Beach. And again, here you see a 3-story version, which may be closer in proportion in terms of height, not in terms of length, to what your city hall might be. And then you see, again, the 3 orders, if you will, the base, the shaft, and then the capital of the building. And it's always, the upper floor is treated to be less important, and it's kind of a very pleasant proportion. Again, all of this is well outlined, and all one needs to do is follow the proportions that have been developed over the years. This building, of course, is you reach this building through a grand staircase, and although we anticipate having, in order to meet flood criteria, to have our building up, we will be providing handicapped accessible ramps. But this is very much in a nutshell what we wanted to show you, and we will be shortly embarking on the very pleasant task of doing a civic building that hopefully, with your help, withstand the test of time. Thank you very much. Any comments or any questions? Philip Johnson, the great modernist architect, once said the ideal client is one that leaves you a check and goes to Europe and comes back when it's done. I kind of don't agree with that, because then I would be designing my house over and over again. So I very much want this to be a reflection of your community and your elected officials. And so I welcome your input tonight or throughout the process, obviously.
Vice Mayor, a comment?
Thank you, Mayor. It's been, I guess, a couple of years now when we first started talking about acquiring a site and building a new city hall that will in fact stand the test of time, to borrow a phrase from our architects tonight. And one thing that the members of the public who did come out at the time and express interest, they wanted to make sure that it was a very intricate, detailed, and lengthy public process, and certainly the look of the building was created with clear public input and direction, coupled with some good architectural principles and common sense. And I hope that this is just the first in what will be many along the stages of design for the purpose of taking public input. And if any of those in the audience here tonight would like to give us their 2 cents worth, maybe we should begin taking some comments or questions tonight before too much more pen goes to paper.
Sure.
Hit the microphone.
Good evening. Robert Barnes, architect, 221 North Chrome Avenue. I appreciate the opportunity to speak on behalf of our town, and I'd like to say that I like the direction you're going in. I would like to add a couple things. I would like to, personally, this one's a personal one. I believe in history and heritage, and that it should relate to the character of our personal heritage of this town. And I do like the classic character because it has a very strong element. There's not a lot of that here, but there's enough to where we could derive some from there. I would like to see some contemporary elements that juxtapose it, because I do believe we are in 2000, not back in. I wouldn't want to see a replication of a building that a couple of the buildings that were shown to us that says we tried to copy something from the past when we're really in the present with the present materials. So I think the real classical architecture today can be expressed through some contemporary elements also that really makes them stand out, and I'm sure that the architect that you've retained is very capable of doing that. I like his work. I would like to suggest that the city really think of designing a building that is for our future in regards to environmental sensitivity, and I would suggest a process which is a little more expensive, and I'm sure Mr. Rodriguez knows about it, which is a LEED certified building. That it takes a little more coordination and to do that, and documentation to be certified for it. But at the same time, you get a much better guarantee of what kind of building you're getting as far as your environmental elements of the building, the air conditioning, the electrical, and the health of the building and the health of the people that are in the building, and also its sensitivity towards energy consumption, which is something that's going to become even more important to everyone in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to say, while Robert's leaving the podium and Ruth is coming forward, that we've begun to have those discussions, and the energy consumption and the needs of the building are kind of relating to an item we have later on the agenda tonight. Ms. Campbell?
Ruth Campbell, 24 Northeast 12th Street, Homestead. I'd like to have in my hand the floor plan that you showed us with the prospective areas of interest, so I could see it better. I like it, what we've seen. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Campbell.
Good evening. Yvonne Mose, Chair of Homestead Historic Preservation Board. I am very impressed with the presentation. At this point, I hope there'll be more chances for input from the various organizations such as the Historic Preservation Board and the Main Street Design Committee. Both have people quite interested in the process as you evolve on this project. The other thing that I was interested in is your input or your influences of what's happening on Washington. I'm sure the arcade will mirror presumably what's across the street from the arcade, but I would caution not to forget what's happening on Chrome and on the rest of the downtown historic district, because there's such a melange of styles, and what makes it interesting is that interesting array of architecture, and scale is going to be extremely important, that whatever is built doesn't overshadow the overall feeling of the downtown district. Thank you very much.
No, if I may briefly comment first on my colleague, Robert Barnes. We did a building for the feds in Jacksonville, which was LEED certified. Like he said, there's a little bit more initial cost, but it comes back to you in operating costs. And I can tell you that this is a very compassionate country, and ADA was something unheard of some years ago, and now it's the law of the land, and we believe that that's what's going to happen with these LEED certification. Very simple survival reasons, So you may need to build sometimes a little bit less, but you want to build it. Again, that would be for us another chapter on the test of time. Test, a very important one. And again, the feds are always in the lead, and of course they benefit from all the taxes that we send them, but they're doing that in Jacksonville, and we did it for them, and we want to have an opportunity if you all feel a commitment towards it. So we appreciate that. On the issue of that Yvonne brought up, the key word there, I think, is scale. And the use of these arcades on Washington Avenue is very difficult for the one civic building to combine a melange of styles. But I think it is very important and responsible to be very careful about scale. So when we show you, as these designs develop, when we show you Washington, we'll show you a section, not only an elevation and a plan, but a section, so you can see what the relationship is between one side of the street and the other. And with respect to Ms. Campbell's comment, we showed just a diagram at that time without the benefit of a program of what, because of the shape of the site and some of the anticipated program components, one of which is very ceremonial, which is this room, and other parts of which are very, office related, which would be more conventional and related to what's most efficient. And there are, again, proportions from the elevator core and the stair core to the skin of the building so that you can do what you need to do and reconfigure. So we will certainly, from our part, be bringing back this at every phase of design, and happy to have public comment and, of course, a comment of you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
That's it. Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Item 2C is the EAS Engineering Incorporation, tab 3.
Mr. Mayor, council members, we ask for your authorization to execute the scope of services with Ed Swicon. He's been the engineer on the lake excavation, and he's helping us through the difficulties we're going through now. So we ask for your authorization to proceed with the work.
Is there a motion for approval?
Motion.
Motion by Councilman Hodge, a second.
Question, Mayor. I'll second it.
Ms. Bell?
Thank you. Is this for an increase in cost? Is this for just the standard cost? Because on the background, it's referring to the cease and desist order.
Actually, like I said, Ed Swicon had been the engineer of record since we started the lake excavation, and now he's the city representative, technical representative to deal with dam and the restoration of the berm. So actually, most of these activities are related to the restoration of the berm, and we also have a part of it miscellaneous services. Some of them could be related to the permit, some of them could be other engineering activities.
So this budget item is $80,000 specifically related to Redland Company?
That's correct.
The issue. Thank you.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item 2D is Save Our Homes Resolution of Support.
Mr. Mayor, this is the follow-up to the presentation from County Commissioner Katie Sorensen. The form of the resolution was received from her office and contains the language that she requested supporting the Save Our Homes legislation in Tallahassee.
I'll move this, Mayor.
Moved by Councilwoman Bell, second by Councilman Hodge. Any question on the resolution? Clear. Mr. Vice Mayor?
Well, it's a very important concept. It's my understanding that there are literally dozens of these different proposals with different twists winding their way through the legislative process. And I'm wondering if we're up to speed through our lobbyists or our attorneys as to if there are other proposals that may have a little different angle to them, more in the lead or perhaps more favored to be passed. I don't want to foreclose supporting others that in concept create this same thing, but by virtue of some of the details may obtain passage over this particular version.
There's not a particular version that's identified in the resolution. There are only a couple of elements of it which are rather generic. The first one is that it's a joint resolution to place on the statewide ballot a constitutional amendment allowing homeowners age 55 or older or who have a total and permanent disability at one-time transfer. That's it. in terms of...
Within the same county?
Yeah, that's...
in the same county and within 1 year of the sale.
Mayor. I'd like to comment basically on what the Vice Mayor had to say. What this is doing is it's very generic. This is extremely generic, and it's generic for a very good reason. And that's true. Many counties, many municipalities are doing this exact same thing. And this is wise for us to go ahead and jump in now with the very generic resolution. And it doesn't mean that this exact language is going to be adopted, but what's going to happen is there are many different forms of wording that's basically in Tallahassee. And this is just putting us on record that we're not objecting to it, and this is a form in it. And I like the fact that we're putting in a one-time with an age restriction, that's pretty much what the city of Homestead is recommending. And I like that the fact that we're going on record with some, even though it's generic, there's a couple of very specifics here that, in other words, it's not going to allow people to flip over and over again and escape from the increase in taxes, that there is a real, this is addressing a particular need. And I like the fact that we are going on record, and that's why I thought we needed this, because something is going to come out of the House. There's going to be something that comes out of the House, so I want the city, I think that was good that Katie brought it forth so we can be on record with some type of resolution. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? 2E is an amendment of Section 2139 of the City Code, nepotism and resolution, tab 5.
Motion.
Motion by Councilman Hodge. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilwoman Wallman. Any questions?
Mayor.
Vice Mayor?
Richard, is this adoption of the state statute, is that more restrictive or less restrictive than the provisions we now have in place, or what's the difference?
Okay, it's less restrictive. It's less restrictive. We have a provision in our code. Two things. First, well, let me answer your question directly. The last sentence of the city ordinance appears to be more restrictive than state law because it attempts to prohibit relatives by marriage or blood from working in the same department within the city. That aspect is not covered by state law. The other things,
same degrees of relativity and so forth are covered.
Right, and our ordinance uses the term member of a family. It doesn't define it. And there's, aside from that one section, our ordinance, I believe, is confused. It causes some confusion. People want to follow the state law. They follow our law. They don't know which one's more restrictive. But in that one aspect, the state law is less restrictive than our existing ordinance.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Any other comments? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Mr. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. You might call this the first step in some long-term and perhaps very costly but necessary hurricane preparedness in order not just to prepare but to be ready for the aftermath and to serve our residents in the aftermath of a hurricane. Mark, are you going to present this one?
General Services Department was tasked after last year's hurricane season with trying to develop a strategy to provide emergency generation for city facilities. Based on what worked for us on a small scale last year, we came up with the RFP and the responses to it that you see before you. It was issued in two parts. Part B, I'd like to take that one first, is the installation of 2 generators at the 2 water treatment facilities in the city. And these are fixed generators, and by the way, this RFP addresses a totally turnkey solution. The same contractor will be bringing in the generators, preparing the sites, wiring, testing, and providing service on these things. That is to make sure that we do not lose pressurization and potable water in the city. It's the feeling that with these 2 generators in place, along with the generator at Whitcott Park, we probably will never face a boil water ordinance again, even though the rest of the county may face that. So that's part B of this. Part A, we were trying to be somewhat creative in supplying power to all the different city facilities, and we came up with a concept of a pool of generators, identical generators on wheels, that could be moved to the city facilities as they're needed to supply power. a good portion, in fact, the majority of the RFP dollars for Part A is the retrofit of the city facilities to put in modular connectors, as opposed to having each one individually wired when it's needed by an electrician, which sometimes cannot be done. It's sometimes somewhat dangerous. And the proposal was, we went through 10 facilities in the city, got our initial estimate back, and we asked that the RFP be delivered as sort of a piecemeal RFP so we could add or subtract things out of it. And after reviewing the price and reviewing some of the facilities, we felt that we could remove 3 of the buildings from the proposal. The City Hall and customer service site could be removed because they're going away. And it seems silly to put infrastructure costs into those buildings. And we feel that we have sort of a ad hoc way of handling this when the time comes. The third one that we felt we could pull out was ITS. ITS, because of its close proximity to the power plant, we're working with the electric utility now on trying to get a direct power connection there, which would keep ITS running. And that's important because all our internet service and telephone services and things of that nature are run through that facility. We've arrived at a recommendation of approximately $365,000 for Part A, for Project A, and $185,000 for Project B. Project B, one of those generators was budgeted, $90,000 was budgeted for one of the 2 generators. So we bring this forward to you, and this is our recommendation to go forward. We are working out the details now with finance and the individual departments as to how we can fund this, and we would have that detail in front of you before council approval, final council approval on this.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw.
Just regarding the budgetary impact, like Mark said, the water, we could fund it within the existing budget without any amendments to the budget. The other ones, we're just going to break it down into which building and who's affected, because it affects different funds, and we will bring you more details when we bring it to council. The other thing, the Mark's comment about boil water order, that's relating to power outages only. So because there are so many reasons for boil water order, and we don't want to be misleading if we just make it sound like it will never be a boil water order.
Thank you, Mike. Do we have a motion on the recommendation?
I'll move it.
Mr. Vice Mayor, let me get a clarification. On Project A, the $365,000, that's not in the budget, right?
It's
in our budget.
It's not in the budget as a one item. However, like I said, the three of the items, 3 of the generators are a part of this. They come to about $160,000. When we break it down, I think we will be able to identify certain monies in the budget, and if we need to ask for more money, we will also identify it when we bring it back for Monday.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, one of the reasons it's not in the budget is we actually didn't develop this concept until after the last 2 hurricanes of last year, which was well past the budget process.
And by the way, we are also pursuing grants that, to fund maybe this round or maybe future rounds, because we could use more generators for the money in the future.
And certainly not only at the state level, when our federal lobbyists were here, that was one of the top of my list too. The aftermath, the monies that are necessary to help us move along after the aftermath of a hurricane event. Here we had a motion on the recommendation by Councilwoman Waldman, seconded by Councilwoman Bell. Is there any further discussion on the motion?
One other clarification, Mr. Vice Mayor. You removed the City Hall and customer service from
Part A.
From Part A. Or what will temporarily substitute the generator that we had out here for Wilma and...
Mr. Mayor, we're going to follow the City Hall, what we've done in the past with a slight modification. When we go on alert, we will move a generator to City Hall in advance, wire it up, and actually as the storm approaches, we will switch to generator power. So the Emergency Operations Center and City Hall will be running on the generation power, so that whether we lose city power or not, it'll be powered for this session.
All right, thank you.
Well, I think, one of the most important things I think to note to come out of this is that in the aftermath, if we are without electrical power, our residents, our businesses will have the power to bring in drinking water and send it out when you're finished with it as well. And, I think to paraphrase Mr. Ivey, if you can drink and then send it back out, you're in good shape. It's not nearly as miserable. It's to keep our pump stations, the sewage lift stations going as well with a rotating system of generated power. There's nothing further. All in favor of the motion? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, Mayor. That's all I have.
Councilwoman Wallman, Park and Rec Committee.
Yes, Mayor. Thank you. This is a grant involving the community forestry grant, and I'm going to turn it over to Marlene. It's for the care and maintenance of the trees in the city, and I know we're doing a tree inventory, which I checked today, and we're almost finished with that, correct? So
yes, Councilman Walden, Mayor and Council. Initially, Council approved the Urban Community Forestry Grant to fund the inventory of our trees within the city. We're probably about another 30 to 60 days we'll be complete with that. This is phase 2, where we're approving for we're asking for an Urban Community Forestry grant in the amount of $25,000. This would be requested in the 06-07 next year's budget, but we have to apply for the grant now. This would take it to phase 2, where we would develop a program of canopy build-out, maintenance, etc., where we would work also closely with our Development Services Department as it relates to landscaping for various developments.
Do I hear a motion?
Motion.
Ms. Gardner and Mr. Hodge, any comments, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed.
Under Section 5, Public Safety, bicycle donation, tab 8.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to defer the two next tabs to the police chief, but after you finish, Chief, with the first one, Mr. Gord would like to say a few words about the organization he represents. We're donating the bicycle store.
Yes, Mr. Mayor and Council, the police department is seeking approval to donate, I think, 9 bicycles to Boy Scouts of America, Troop 10, for a special project for the homeless shelter here in Homestead.
Okay, hello, my name is Brett Rauschberger, and I am a Boy Scout of Troop 10, and I'm going for my Eagle project, and for a requirement to get an Eagle is you have to do a project, and so my project is to collect old bikes, repair and clean them, and then donate them to the Community Partnership for the Homeless, which is in Homestead, Florida. And so I have already collected 11 bikes, and I have gone down to the police station and set aside 9 bikes, and I am asking the city if you guys can please donate these 9 bikes for my project.
I'll move this, Mayor.
I'll second that.
Moved by Councilwoman Bell, second by Councilwoman Wallman.
No, it was Ms. Gardner.
Ms. Gardner, I'm sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's approved. Good luck.
Thank you.
I want to congratulate you on your project. Let us know when you're going through your ceremonies as well. Thank you.
And Mayor, I would think that there's a lot of people out here that have bicycles that they might like to get rid of. So I know a few myself. So if you'll leave your information with...
We have enough for them.
You have everything, so...
Too many.
Call you. We'll call the big guy.
Item 5B is the Bureau of Justice JAG grant in the amount of $45,000. Is the motion for approval?
Motion.
Moved by Councilwoman Garner, second by Councilman Hodge. Any questions? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Councilman Hodge.
Thank you, Mayor. Bid 200328, 7 scrap transfer transformers and capacitors. Extension number 1. Defer to Mike.
Mr. Chairman, council members, this is an existing contract, and we're asking for your authorization to extend the contract.
I'll move it.
Good job.
I'll move it.
Second motion.
I have a first and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you, Mayor.
Councilwoman Bell, any business for the committee of the whole?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Hodge?
No, sir.
Mr. Vice Mayor?
None, thank you.
Councilwoman Walden?
No, sir.
Councilwoman Garner?
No, Mayor, thank you.
Mr. Shahada?
Mr. Mayor, council members, we are hoping by next COW, you know, we have the webcast for all council meetings, and we're going to have webcast for all the meetings we have in these chambers, and you could see the camera there, so hopefully it will go live next meeting.
Good.
For the COW meetings?
For all the COW, P&Z, all the meetings we have
Really?
here. Yeah.
Very good. Mr. Attorney, any business for the committee of the whole? If not, meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for coming. We'll turn the project over.